Today on New Challenger, Max Scoville says Deadlight isn't just about messy, shambling corpses. It kind of actually is one. This episode is brought to you by Jack Threads. Welcome to the show. I'm Anthony, and oh, Summer of Arcade. The things you give us. Sometimes they're beautiful, magical gifts, and sometimes they're Deadlight, a 2D survival horror game set in a post-zombie apocalypse 1980s Seattle. Looks pretty gorgeous, but Max Scoville was not too impressed. You just reviewed the game over at Rev3 Games.
I did. I would honestly say I was more forgiving in my review than I actually felt afterwards. We shot that like literally 20 minutes after I'd beaten the game.
Yeah.
The game, I looked at my time on it. I think I beat it in 2 hours, and that was with plenty of frustration and no hints from anyone. It's a game that reviews are made for.
Yeah.
It starts off really strong. It shows so much promise. Visually, throughout the game, it's really good. But the first act is sort of that like kind of holding your hand tutorial sort of thing.
Yeah.
The puzzles are easy. The pacing is kind of slow. You're like, once this picks up, it's going to get good.
Yeah, and this is kind of a mix. This is not just an action game.
No.
It's also trying to be a puzzle game.
It is 3 acts that are like completely different types of gameplay.
Okay.
The first part is kind of platformer, survival horror, feels sort of like, none of this world, flashback-y kind of thing. Little bits of Limbo or Shadow Complex in there.
Yeah.
The second act goes into this weird sort of obstacle course Limbo thing. You fall on a lot of spikes. You're pretty much, the zombies are forgotten.
Yeah.
Your weapons are taken away from you. And then the third act turns into like Cannonball, and then you get guns and you're shooting guys, and it's like a full-on action running thing, which with the controls from the sort of like creeping slowly around survival horror thing just doesn't work.
Yeah, I felt like they just couldn't figure out what they wanted this game to be.
They really couldn't.
Not just in a matter of, like you said, the acts are incredibly different. In the first one, it feels very slow-paced, deliberate. You're kind of pushing zombies away, trying to like keep your stamina meter up, and you're like, if this all kind of falls into place, this is gonna be great. And then, all of a sudden, you're in some weird hobo's underground palace.
Yeah.
And there are, like you said, there are spikes. And when I saw spikes, like spike pit traps, in a zombie survival horror game in 80s Seattle, I was like, these guys, what were they doing? Was there like one guy directing it? Did they want to make a different game?
Yeah. You could have made one really good game and 2 pretty mediocre games out of this game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they made one game that just kind of turns into just a big pile of messiness.
Yeah, and they try to make it, I noticed, it gets faster and faster paced, but like you said, that control, it almost feels...
The controls are so squishy.
They're very squishy, and it almost feels to me like they were trying for an early Prince of Persia thing, not like Sands of Time, but like...
No, the old school.
The original
I remember
one.
just like early on, I was like, this is exactly what I want. I love those old games. I love Flashback and stuff like that. Limbo and Shadow Complex were 2 of my most favorite recent games, and this was totally stacking up to be like a scary, kind of dark, slow-paced version of those, and then it completely fell apart.
Yeah.
There's also the story, which is like hilariously derivative. The voice acting and the writing is just like, it's just comical. There's actually a line in there that's like, "There's no such thing as darkness, only light that we can't see."
What the hell have you done?
Why? We would all be dead by now because of your little sister.
I mean, this is from a Spanish studio, and I mean, it's they had like pretty good like effort in writing and voice acting, considering, but like some of it, like you're like, is this like lost in translation? Did something get mixed up here?
There were some interesting ideas and bright points in the story that I felt like didn't make it through fruition. If you read this guy's diary, you're picking up diary pages the whole time. If you read this guy's diary, it's almost like one sort of borderline schizophrenic dude's descent into hallucinogenic madness.
Yeah.
And some of that is sort of picked up in the game, and they almost got to the point where they were trying to play around with, well, is this reality? Is this in his head? What's going on?
Yeah, dream sequences can stop it in games. They can just stop it right now, especially in a game that's like, it is that kind of simplified, you're seeing everything on screen. That's what I love about platformers, that they show you everything.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm transported to a flashback to learn how to use a gun, and I'm like, that's overcomplicating things.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
too much. One thing I thought was really funny is they had you going around picking up the IDs of dead people. Every single one of the IDs is like a famous serial killer in history.
Yes.
You're in 1980s Seattle, but for some reason, every serial killer in history has died in the zombie apocalypse.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
And it sort of shows you that maybe they were going for this weird kind of dream world thing and they just didn't push it far enough. Like they either should have gone, I just feel like the bottom line with this game, and you can tell me if you feel the same way, is they just didn't focus on one thing or one vibe, and if they had, this could have been a super great downloadable title.
Absolutely. If this was, Summer of Arcade 2013, we could have had like a real hit on our hands.
So you're gonna show us in just a moment one of the strangest sequences in this game. It's just totally out of place, and you'll see how the control works, so you can judge for yourself. But first, I wanted to thank Jack Threads for sponsoring the show today. Only suckers pay full price. If you love alternative apparel brands like Kid Robot, Hurley, and Stussy, but you hate wasting all your cash on them, listen to me. Look into my eyes. You can score these premium brands at up to 80% off every day. There's an invite-only shopping club called Jack Threads, and they're serving up street, skate, and surfwear brands at prices that will melt your brain. There's a waitlist to join, but if you head to jackthreads.com/challenger, you will get instant access to all of the killer hookups. Go now. Did I mention it's totally free to join? Yes, I did. It was 2 seconds ago. jackthreads.com/challenger, and you'll start instantly saving without having to leave the house. I got this tie there. I get a lot of my stuff there. Believe it. Max,
Let's play some Deadlight.
let's play it.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is Seattle right now, 1980s Seattle. It is not City of Lost Children. We are not watching some sort of weird foreign art movie.
Yeah, this is just a weird booby trap place.
So this is in the sewers, and before this, you're running around in a completely normal suburban environment.
Sorry, I died.
And then you meet one hobo who has built an entire underground world.
Yeah, it's like he's a really big fan of Limbo, and he wanted to make like some of the stuff from Limbo.
Right.
But it's just like, the Seattle is really wonderfully realistic. Like, I really like the attention to detail there, and then here it's just like, this is like if, in Hook, if Rufio was really, really messed up and evil and lived in a sewer instead of on Never Never Land.
Yeah.
Also, the loading times in this game are a pain in the ass.
Yeah, they are.
They are long, and considering how often you die, it's a little bit inexcusable.
So the deal in this thing is you pretty much control, it's not like a Super Meat Boy fluid platforming control. This is control that was made for kind of like shambling around, pushing off zombies and like slowly climbing obstacles. And here you're made to make these sort of split-second physical decisions.
Yep. So here I am in a thing.
Because this is the way sewers look, you guys.
There's my slingshot, which I will use to shoot this thing, I guess.
If you were to go underground into the sewers of Seattle right now, you would probably find this bottomless abyss with spike traps.
Yep, it's a very accurate representation, really. This
And
is so...
and you used to work in public works, so you know.
Yeah. Have you guys seen a zombie yet? Because I haven't seen a zombie yet. And, spoiler alert, there are... fuck.
Oh.
Okay, let's try and get past that part.
Yeah.
The checkpoints are also spaced out a little bit weird.
See, I didn't have a problem with the checkpoints.
Really?
I thought the checkpoints were fine.
Wait till you see this next part.
Okay.
Where I will, be a little bit stuck. What do you want here? What are you doing?
More of those strange symbols.
He wanted me to stop and have a conversation with him about something.
Duck!
I was pushing the duck button, actually. Yep. So controls.
You're like, I was.
Yeah, that's a thing that happens. It's great. Like it does kind of have that sort of meta horror movie kind of thing where you're like old. People complain about survival horror not being around enough anymore, and it's like they're like, well, the controls back then were really, they were kind of a mechanic really because it was so hard to control that it was scarier. And
I've never bought into that. I've never bought into that argument. I just feel like early survival horror games, they didn't know. I think you got to go up and around. Yeah. Early survival horror games, they just didn't know how to do 3D games in general very well. If you look at like the original Resident Evil, Alone in the Dark,
Yep.
there's a reason they had to do tank controls. They didn't know what else to do. So
Indeed.
I've never bought that argument.
It's a very silly argument. What am I doing here?
I think you got to do a bounce off of that plank and into the X.
Come on,
The
shoot it.
slingshot.
Just there we go.
There
That's
it
the
is.
one. Okay, cool. So this part actually had me really stumped, which is just embarrassing. God damn it.
It does do these weird things with the slingshot later on, where puts a wall directly in front of what you're supposed to hit, and there's like that much space, so you can't tell if it's actually a wall.
Yeah.
If that's the target. Like, it gets really
this is
weird.
one of those things where it's like they didn't really want to make puzzles here, but they're like, well, let's put some puzzles there. That'll slow them down. But it's like the kind of puzzles where it's like, move
People
this
love
thing.
the puzzles.
All right, so this place. Oh my God, I hate this room so much.
Okay.
Oh good God, just drop down. There you go. So.
So you've got to run and you've got to sprint run in this game.
So this guy's gonna come down and he's gonna be like, hey, what are you doing? You want to come in my cool treehouse? And I have to hit. It doesn't actually tell me I have to hit Y, but I have to hit Y to tell him to let down this cool elevator he's got.
Although, why wouldn't you want him to do that?
Now see, it stops right there, right?
What else are you going to do? Of course you want him to lower the elevator.
Now you look up there. There's that little thing up there. Maybe I have to hit that again. You see these guys up here on the side here. Maybe I've got to bring them together and have them drop or something. And
because
shake the
we're
spikes
thinking
off.
that we cannot make the jump to this elevator.
You can see these guys, the planks I'm on, they kind of rock a little bit. And what's this crate over here? This is very reminiscent of an old Limbo puzzle. And then if I go like, oop, that was a little bit soon. Yeah, okay, so this spoiler alert, you have to jump there, but you have to jump there really, really well.
So the one thing that I had the most problem with in this game was exactly this type of situation, because you have a sprint jump.
Yes.
But the sprint jump, he will look like he's sprinting. Randall will look like he's going full speed about 3 steps before he actually hits full speed. And so you think you're ready to do the sprint jump, especially because they don't give you a lot of running room.
Here's one of those checkpoints. I have to go down again,
Well, come on, going down, that's not too far back.
Right, but I have to tell this guy to send down the thing again. That bugged me. When you hear him, also he says something that's like, "Are you sure you want to go out right now?" And it's like, well, maybe I have to wait for something. Maybe this is some kind of elaborate ruse on his part.
Come on, Randall.
Well, I got
Perfect.
it. Yeah, I was stuck there for a while because I was overthinking it, which is a major problem in puzzle games. But again, it's like, it just was. I don't know. It pissed me off a lot.
It's weird when the control for a game is only 90% there, your game is 100% broken. The end. It's the last 10% of the control that lets you trust it and know what you're doing. The fact that you can't trust that sprint jump to the point where you didn't know whether that was a puzzle or not.
That was
issue.
literally the hardest puzzle in the game, and it was a fault of the controls, and it was just
That was also one of the most action-packed sequences in the game, so that should tell you that there are multiple levels on which Deadlight is just not doing it. I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's Deadlight for you. I think I 88%ed it. Didn't get all the collectibles, didn't find all the secrets, but 88% beat the game straight through. I'm clocked at 2 hours and 2 minutes, so it's a short game. There's a lot of frustration in there.
Yeah.
And it's $15, so maybe wait for a sale, but otherwise I'd say skip it. The scores have been across the board. Destructoid gave it a 4, Polygon gave it a 7,
7
Kotaku
feels a little high.
just said no, IGN gave it an 8.5. Yeah.
Come on, IGN.
I'd say skip it, guys.
Definitely skip it. If you want to know more about it, Max goes into much more detail in his full review of Deadlight over on Rev3 Games. You're probably on Rev3 Games right now if you're watching this. You're already there. How simple is that? If you're not, go there and subscribe. We do all kinds of neat stuff. For instance, next week here on New Challenger, we've got Jonathan Mack on the show to talk about sound shapes. I'm so stoked for sound shapes.
You should get the triangle and play it, because that's a shape that makes some sound.